Please welcome to the stage, Cyndi Freeman!
I'm 24 years old, and it is 1988, and I am at a dive bar for a Halloween party. I work at this bar. I love this bar. I work in the basement of the bar in an interactive murder mystery, which is a bunch of sort of improv actors, and we, play crazy characters, and then the audience has to guess which one of us is a murderer. And I'm 24 and I'm making most of my living as a performer. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm making it. I'm so excited. And I love the cast. The cast is super cool. I love them so much that I never want to leave. And luckily at this bar, we can drink till 4 a.m. Because bars close in Boston at 2, but they just let us stay as long as we want. So we're partying hard. We're having fun. It's Halloween, and the bar staff has told us that, for Halloween, we want you to come to the party. In fact, everyone in the cast, you guys get to drink for free. So we are getting drunk. We're having a good time. The woo-woos are flowing because that's the big drink of 1988. And my boyfriend is on his way, and I'm really not looking forward to him showing up and ruining the mood. I really don't want him showing up because one of the cast members actually did a bit of an intervention on me earlier in the evening. They're all a little bit older than me, and so they think of me as a little sister, and one of them just kind of was in my face and it's like, "What is wrong with your boyfriend?" And what is wrong with my boyfriend? I told him, which I'll tell you, was that his mom had actually passed away earlier in the year. He was very depressed, and he was in mourning, and it was coming out in a way that made him kind of mean-spirited. And this weird thing that when I first started dating him, he was this nerdy, he was a stand-up comic, and he was this nerdy kid who had every comedy album ever created. He wore nothing but t-shirts, and they were all like ironic with jeans and sneakers, and he had traded that look in for 3-piece expensive suits that he could not afford, and they were about $400 a pop. And he kept buying suits after suits. And I don't know if it was that he felt that he was a loser or then he had to be the kind of success his mother could be. I didn't know what was driving it, but he couldn't afford the rent for the suits. And we were getting into arguments where I was like, you either got a budget and not buy so many suits or maybe get a part-time job. And he would just scream, "This is you not supporting my vision." Like, you just don't believe in me. And I'm fine. I was fine to carry him for a little while. You know what? He was going through something. I didn't quite get it. I was basically waiting it out until my real boyfriend showed back up. And I kind of knew he was in there somewhere. And so he shows up after a comedy gig. I'm like, "How'd it go?" Fucking, which is what he always does. And he orders a beer, and I drink another shot. And there's a band playing. The band at this place was all these rockers from the 1950s who were still doing it, and they had canes, but they would rock away. They were adorable. So they're playing them. We're going and dancing and stuff like that. And then Mike shows up. Now, Mike is one of my favorite characters in this bar. He's African-American. He's really skinny. I would love to say he wasn't on the cocaine diet, but basically everybody in that bar, it was the 1980s, was on the cocaine diet. So he's really skinny. He's really wired all the time. And he is the handyman there, and he gets paid in booze. So he's always there, and he's always buying drinks because he's got a tab that is always open. And so he shows up, and he's been saying to us for weeks, Halloween is my night. You guys are the star downstairs. When you have your show on Halloween, I'm going to be the star. Wait till you see that costume. He's been saying this for weeks, and he shows up as the Grim Reaper. White on his face, black on his eyes, and a hood, and a plastic sickle. And he actually looks pretty good. I'm like, "Good job, Mike." He goes, "I told you, Halloween's my night, but wait till you see the stunt I got planned." And we're like, "Okay, Mike, there you go." And I'm laughing, and I look over at my boyfriend, Matt, and he's like, "Who's that loser?" I'm like, "Shh, he's one of my friends. Don't worry about it." So the music stops, the band takes a break, they put on the pipes on music, and I can see Mike has grabbed a chair and he's dragged it out, and there's this beam. He's looking on the beams on the ceiling. He's got a noose around his neck. And the noose it's not that long, but he's got it in his hand, and the owner of the bar sees him, comes running out, and I can see the arms flailing, like clearly, they're not doing whatever you plan on doing in my bar. And now Mike is upset, and the owner is like, get him some shots, get shots for everybody. And so we come back, more woo-woos for everybody. And Mike now has to go down the row and through all the cast members and all his friends, like, oh man, I wanted to do it. Oh man, I had this stunt. And when he gets to me and Matt, he's like, oh, I was going to do this thing that I saw Alice Cooper do in a concert where he was like hanging there, but he wasn't really hanging. And then he lifts up his t-shirt and he's got a harness that he's made out of like recycled safety belts from cars. And it's like, it's going down his jeans and, clearly into the groin area. And he's like, see, there's this piece, and he pulls it out. There's a big piece of seatbelt material. And he's like, we're going to put it on. And then I put the noose over and it'll look like I'm hanging, but I'm not. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, Mike. That sounds really cool. And he's like, yeah, I'll figure it out. Great. Well, at 11 o'clock, the owner, leaves, and Mike is watching that door. And the second he is out, he goes to the door. He looks out. You can see him like looking, waiting for the guy to get into his car. And he comes back and he just suddenly screams over the music, it is showtime, right? And he comes out and he grabs the chair, and a friend of his grabs another chair. So he's got his chair and he's on it. And his friend like pulls the seatbelt material from behind and strings it to the beam. And he throws the noose over the beam. And then he says, all right, kick the chair. And his friend goes, 1, 2, and the audience goes 3, and he kicks the chair, and Mike drops, and he shakes like he's having a seizure, and the noose falls down. Now he's wearing a necktie, and he's shaking with the necktie, and then his head goes to the side, and the tongue goes out, and we all applaud. Good job. We're performers, we understand. So he's like, no, let's do it again. He gets back on the chair. His friend kicks it again. He's still wearing it as a necktie. It's the worst special effects I've ever seen. We, applaud. Maybe this time we're not as enthusiastic. And then he's like, let's do it again. And the bouncer comes over and says, Mike, I think it's time. I think you're done. And he's like, no, this is fun. And he's like, it's not fun, Mike. Come on. It's like you did it twice. We had fun, but now it's over. And then he starts shaking again like he's having a seizure. The tongue comes out of his mouth, and he hangs there. And the bouncer says, come on, Mike. And he doesn't respond. And he says, Mike. And he still doesn't respond. And Michelle behind the bar screams, Mike. And he still doesn't respond. And then the bouncer touches his hand and he goes, trick or treat, ha-ha, and we're just like, geez. There's like, you gotta come down. And he's like, no, this is fun. And it's fun for him. He's the center of attention. It is not fun for anybody else in the bar. So at this point, I'm close to Michelle, who's the bartender, and I pull her aside, and I'm like, he's acting like a 4-year-old. I mean, what do you do with a 4-year-old? You ignore them, and they no longer get any interest out of it. And she's like, that's a good idea. We'll ignore him for a little while. So she tells the security guard to do this. I tell all my cast members and my boyfriend, we turn our backs to him. And then we start, drinking and talking and having fun and arguing with Matt, because that's the only thing we ever do. When suddenly I hear this voice, and it's the guy who plays the detective in the improv show, or Columbo. He's still in his his jacket, and he just says, how long has he been up there? And I turn around, I don't know, I've had enough of an argument with Matt at this point to realize it's been a while. And the bouncer suddenly notices and just jumps into action. All right, Mike, we're cutting you down. And Mike doesn't respond. And he's like, come on, Mike, this isn't funny. And Mike still doesn't respond. And again, Michelle says, Mike. And he doesn't respond. And the bouncer goes and he touches the hand. And this time there is no resistance, like there's no bones in it. And the bartender, Michelle, she's just like, Mike, I'm going to call an ambulance. And I say to her, I'm like, Michelle, this is what you're going to do. Just tell him that he will need to pay for this ambulance, because at this point, we're not even sure that he's just pulling another stunt. And she's like, yeah, Mike, if we call an ambulance, it's coming out of your pocket, not the bars. He still doesn't respond. She's like, oh God. She turns off the music. She's on the phone. Our Columbo is running out looking for real police. And everybody who knows Mike is now on the floor, in the dance floor, and just like, Mike, wake up, Mike. And the EMTs come pretty darn quick, and they sort of get rid of all of us. And like, none of us know anything about CPR. We're all drunk. So we all kind of back up. And then the police come in. And the police, they get him out on a gurney and out the door, and they shut the door, and nobody's allowed to leave, which is exactly what we say in the show downstairs. So it's sort of like, this weird moment of life imitating art, and I'm sitting there as the police are talking to everybody, and I'm just feeling so goddamn guilty because it was my idea to ignore him. And when the police come, I'm trying to think, like, what am I going to say? And it was my idea, but all they want is my phone number. And I give them the number, and they get everybody's number. In the bar is about 40 people, and then they leave and say, all right, everyone's free to go. And when they're gone, it's silent, and people are kind of murmuring. And then I look to Matt, and Matt just starts laughing. And I understand nervous laughter. I've laughed at a couple funerals myself, but this is a tough neighborhood, and Michelle's giving him the stink eye, and I'm like, Matt, and he's like, I just can't stop. I'm like, all right, we're going. And I throw her a 20, and I grab him by the hand, and we're gone. Now we get out of the bar, and there is the ambulance. It has not moved on to the hospital, and it's like been at least an hour, and I'm thinking, oh my God. And I look through the window, and they are all working on him. So Matt and I would get in a cab. And again, I am just feeling so guilty. Like, that was, why did I think that was a good idea? That was possibly the worst idea. And why did anybody think this? Like, why did anybody listen to me? And as I'm sitting in that thought, Matt just says, that is just proof of Darwin's theory. Some people are too stupid to live. And I say, Matt, Mike is my friend. We get home, and he's now angry because I didn't like his joke. And I'm like, let's just go to sleep. And we go to sleep, and at 8 a.m., I'm woken up by the phone. It's the police. They want me to come in to talk to me. So I grab my stuff. I leave Matt there. I really don't want him laughing with the police. And I get there, and they ask a lot of questions, and I tell him, look, it was my idea, and I did say that, we shouldn't, we should ignore him, but it's just, I didn't realize we would ignore him this long, and I don't understand what happened. And mostly what I want to know is, like, where is he so I can visit him, and how is he doing? And one of the police officers just looks at me, and his head kind of goes to the side, and he's like, ma'am, he's dead. And I say, what? And he said, ma'am, we wouldn't have called you in if he was alive. And I'm like, what happened? And he couldn't have hung himself. I mean, it was around his neck like a necktie. And he said, no, ma'am, no. It was that contraption he made. It as he was shaken, I guess people said, it tightened around his rib cage. I mean, it tightened up, it constricted. He didn't have air for at least 10 minutes, no oxygen. I'm like, oh my God, so he suffocated up there? And he's like, no, he actually, cause of death was a heart attack. And I thought of all the cocaine that goes on in that bar and think it's probably that I didn't tell them. And I was like, so when did he die in the ambulance? They said, no, they brought him back 3 times. He died in the hospital. So I go home and I tell Matt, and he's worthless. He's just like idiot and stupid people that you work with. And so I call the cast, and of course everybody has been interviewed by the police by this time, and all we want to do is hang out with each other. So we go to a pizza joint that we all frequent. Nobody wants to drink and nobody wants to eat, and I just feel so goddamn guilty. And I'm just like, I don't know why I thought that was a good idea, and they're trying to console me and saying, hey, we all listened to you, we all thought it was a good idea, and just don't, it's not your fault. And then they start telling me, after you left, we just kept drinking. We went to the bar across the street and we kept drinking. And one says, I don't even know how I got home. And another says, neither do I. And a third one says, I woke up in a pool of my own vomit. And I go, oh God. He goes, yeah, it's, you know what? There could have been another dead body last night. And then we start this conversation about why are we so careless? I mean, we party hard. We've always partied hard, but this is the first time we're realizing maybe we partied too hard. So the funeral is later that week, and of course we all go, and there's his family, and we all sort of like huddled together for support. And when I get to his mom, and she's this African-American woman in her late 60s, I just start crumbling, and I'm just like, I can't even get it out. I am so sorry. And I don't know what she knows, but she knows enough to take my hand. And she said, I don't want you to be sorry. I don't want anybody to be sorry. How many people tried to get him to stop? And how many times did they tell him not to do it? And he just chose to do it because it was his time to go. He was a healthy man. There was no reason for him to die that day, but God wanted him back home. I'm a religious woman, and it was his time to go. But if there's anything you get out of this, I want you kids to understand that life is short. And if you want to tribute or honor my son, he tried to show you a good time. So you have a good time. That's what he would want. You have a good life and a good time. And I went home. And when I think about that whole experience and the guilt that I still feel about that, the piece that I try to hold on to is her words. I don't know what was going through his mind as he passed away. I would hope that he simply passed out. But he was trying to show us a good time. And she's right. Life is short. And I soon after broke up with Matt because life is simply too short to be around people who don't know how to be kind to one another. Thank you.